Darius Davie is a 9-year industry veteran and men's stylist. He's also the co-founder and creative director for The Groom Guy, which is a premium men's wellness brand. They offer supplies and services in hospitality. He's an entrepreneur and he's passionate about men's wellness and hair. Today, we're going to hear all about The Groom Guy and everything that he's done, positioning himself in media and even the White House. Welcome back to the Hairdresser Strong Show. My name is Robert Hughes, and I am your host. And today, I'm here with Darius Davie. How you doing today, Darius?
I am good, Robert. Thank you for having me here, good sir.
Absolutely. Well, I encourage anybody who's if you didn't see Darius's first episode, then I encourage you to go back and watch it. It's an awesome story about how he got to where he is. And if you're just getting started, or you're thinking about making a shift, or you want more out of your career, you got to watch that episode. Now, today we're going to hear about the Groom Guy, and we're going to dig into that even more and expand it even more than we did in our last conversation. And we're also going to hear about how exactly did you get to have a meeting in the White House? What did you talk about? Also, getting on TV. Like these are pretty incredible, awesome things. And it's like if you think about the amount of hairdressers and barbers in the industry, and you think about how many of them been on TV, it's probably a small percentage, I would guess. And then it's even a smaller percentage of people who've gotten into the White House. So let's start with the Groom Guy. For anybody who didn't watch the previous episode, tell us, what is the Groom Guy?
The Groom Guy is a premium men's wellness brand that, as you've said, like we focus on services and products and retail products, but we're also kind of an agency, if you will, an agency that helps provide those modern solutions within hair, but exclusively under hospitality in that industry.
And when you say hospitality, you mean the hotel industry?
Hotels. Yeah, hotels and resorts. Hotels and resorts. That's kind of our bread and butter. That's where we like to center in our niche, target our audience.
And you talked about in the last episode that there's work to now expand across more properties, more hotels and resorts. And so, what does that look like? Like, one, how where are you in that process? And like, what type of informative and educational information could you share with the audience who's thinking like, this sounds cool? How did you do that?
I'll start with that one. I started with a plan. Before it was hair, it was business. So it's about making a business plan and having that business plan looked, having that business plan checked, and more importantly, having an understanding of where you want to go. Right? What does your 1 year plan look like, 3 to 4? And I can imagine it's very hard to project that. But if you can create a roadmap or a GPS for your business, then when you throw in hair and the hair business itself, then you can, in some capacity, then you've got you know where you want to go on this road, and on this journey. So I had to identify it first as a business and really kind of understand all those pieces and elements to it. And then also who were the people that were going to be involved to help me on this business. I think many solopreneurs, many maybe owners get lost in that, where there's not necessarily the strongest team building. And it doesn't mean you need to have tons of people. All right, 15 people. We don't. It's myself and my co-founder Matthew Sears, who is a partner and the director. So he handles a lot of the operations on a high level when it comes to general management of the two properties and brokering those deals. Where I'm very much aware and I'm very much in those rooms. However, I take on the design responsibility. I'm taking on the brand marketing responsibility, the outreach, really capturing the voice of the Groom Guy brand, which speaks to elegance, which in customer service speaks to excellence. And then obviously the hair side, it goes without saying, right? That should be seamless.
And so you talked a little bit about more, and if anybody's still like, this sounds cool, tell me more. You started off with a pop-up spot for to provide hair services, is that correct? In a in a hotel. Tell us a little bit about how that happened, and about how it came to be and how you made it happen.
Well, I will say that we were pretty much in a storm, a global pandemic, and in that there's a lot of panic, there's a lot of unrest, a lot of people uneasy. But it's kind of the mind of an entrepreneur to say, okay, how can I be of service, right? How does what that I bring could be a lifeline? And when I started to carve out this concept, it was, as I said earlier in the last interview, I encourage folks to check it out. In the last interview, I talk about how LinkedIn, barbering and hair and the salon world is very much, in terms of how you build your network, is very much like LinkedIn. And if you are able to articulate your vision or what you're looking to accomplish to the right person, and when it's appropriate, you may find yourself in a unique space to create opportunities for yourself. And so for me, it was creating with that client that who was connected to the hotel space and also property management. And I had to then pitch and share this to that management team and to the GM. So it goes back to, once again, understanding business while still learning, understanding hair. Because the business side was, can I create a pitch deck? Can I create a business model? And can I communicate this effectively to the GM to be able to have some level of interest so he can give me 3 months, right? 3 months, that's all we ask for. And if they don't like it, we'll pack up and we'll leave. Well, 3 months have now turned into 3 years at this hotel, and we are still a pop up there, but it has opened doors for us in the hotel space because it's hard to get them to believe, right? We're the hairdressers, we have the vision, but we have to get people outside of our industry to believe exactly what we want to do and how we can be a solution. So that took a lot of time. But the beautiful thing about our industry is that we can show and convince people through our work, right? Literally through our hair cutting, right, and our services. And when people come back, we realize there's equity in that, right? There's a value in that that is valuable to a whole another industry. And we found that value for the hotels.
Nice. So was your business partner, did he help you with the pitch deck and the business plan? How did that if he so he's sounds like he's involved. He's not just like an investor. Sounds like he'd run some portion of it. Tell us a little bit about, because like I feel like the partner thing is like it can go sideways so fast. And so like when you're thinking about a partner, you think about access, and you think about what they bring to the table, what their strengths are, and how they could complement you. But like, did were they more of an advisor to your process, or did they have their hands in it? And how was that?
To your point, we have seen a lot of story and heard a lot of stories about partnerships in the hair business going left. I have found that because of principles, a lack of communicating principles, which is honesty and transparency, roles and responsibilities that weren't clear, and terms, and having different lawyers. Like it's things that, once again, outside of hair, go back to basic business that's essential for any stylist to learn before they get into that process. So in the case of myself and Matthew, I had to prove the concept not just to the hotel, but to Matthew himself before he formally got on board. So that took about a whole year, maybe a year and 3 months of consistently creating Groom Guy out of a pop-up space in a hotel and allowing him to not only see it, but believe it. And once he got on and got to believe it, and that was at our 1 year anniversary event, is when he said, okay, Darius, I see what you're trying to do. I understand it from the outside looking in. And most importantly, I see that you're consistent. What are the ways that I can help? And that's when you sit down and you identify, okay, what are we forming here? What does this alliance look like? Oh, this is a partnership. Okay, let's work on this together. I also like to add preface with, he's been one of my closest friends since I was 6 years old, and here we are, 25 years later, being able to work together, which is amazing.
Nice. That's awesome. So it sounds like was he not involved getting you getting the pop up?
So no, he was not on board officially at that time. It
So
was
how did
just
you get the
me.
pop up? You did all that on yourself, or you had a client introduce you to the right person, get you in a room? How I think I missed that part.
Sure. So I had to broker the deal. I had to design. I had to design the brand deck. I had to have that checked and reviewed. I had to present, and then I had to prove it. So I had to wear multiple hats simultaneously for one chair for a studio. So many times we hear salon suites, which I think is to some degree is great, but it's still a business. So I had to treat my one chair as if I was an entire enterprise, right? Because in order for me to even roadmap and do where it is now, I had to work with what I had. So you have to work with what you have and treat it as such. So that other people know how to treat you when you're in the negotiation room or you're in the negotiation table. And once I was able to prove those markers and pass those benchmarks, Matt, who came from the outside with another level of business acumen, was able to say, okay, I'm impressed to see what you're doing, not just in day to day hair, but in business. Let's take this to the next level.
So how did you make the connection to the specific hotel? Like did you were you just like cold calling people and like sent like or was there some sort of relationship that got you into that meeting?
It goes back to that client relationship. It goes back to knowing which client to feel comfortable and appropriate to share your vision and what it is you intend on doing. Now they can get you in the door, but you still have to have some level of business acumen to know how to move, right? And how to position yourself to talk to a GM and understand what your value is, right? For me, it wasn't just a value. It's how we as I think in some degree as hairdressers how we want to articulate it, right? For someone, they could say, I do hair, right? I cut hair, I color hair. It's great. For us, it's we provide value, right? We provide social value. There's a level of equitable value that we bring to your property. And then when you phrase it that way, you want people to ask questions to understand what does that mean. Well, one of the ways we do that is by building up what we call these self-care sanctuaries, which in some way or fashion give a sense of community for the property, shows a high level of return, and it allows you to focus on a niche audience, a target audience. But once again, that it sounds great, but you got to break that down even more. And those are those long hours. Those are timeless, long nights of just like sketching and writing, reviewing material, and yeah, we've been able in some capacity to get to a good space with it.
That's cool. So you leverage your chair to run ideas across. I love the focus group, the use of the chair as a focus group. I do that all the time. And I had a boss one time. He was like, he called it. He said he married a Jewish guy, and he was very involved with their family. And he said, you know what? He said there's something called Jewish dating. I don't know if it's actually a thing. My wife's Jewish, and she's never heard about this, but the whole thing was when you want something, you just tell as many people as possible that you want it, and you'll find somebody who will give it to you. And so like I love like testing my spiel and my pitch anytime I get the chance. Now, of course, you made a very, 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 very important comment point that I don't want to get brushed over, and that is when it's appropriate, because not everybody wants to be part of your focus group. Some people want to do the talking, or some people don't want you to talk, or whatever. They want to talk about sports or traveling or whatever. So yes, I think when it's appropriate, I think that I love that piece of advice. Okay,
So
and then yeah, I like the also part that you leveraged it. You got your foot in the door, and then you nailed it. You did the work. You sold it. You got it, and then you brought in a partner who you knew. Now that makes sense. I thought it was the partner help was kind of with you the whole time. So I think that's even more powerful too, because there's a lot of folks out there that you know I think that they have the drive and ambition, and they just got to kind of keep their head up and keep pressing and doing the work. So, talk to me about this positioning you've gotten yourself into. Like, oh wait, real quick. So you said two properties. So you got one location in DC. Where's the other location?
in Palm Beach, Florida.
And is that and how did that happen?
The property, the company, this hotel saw the work that we did in DC, and they wanted to reach out with an opportunity.
Oh, really? You weren't looking. They reached out to you. Nice. That's
Mhm,
amazing.
mhm.
That's
When you
awesome.
tell your story loud enough, somebody will hear you.
Totally. All right, so let's talk about this positioning stuff. I know we're getting like running over a little bit on time. So
Okay.
let's talk about getting on. Tell us a little bit about like your press stuff, and tell us a little bit about what that was like. Was that cool? You don't ever want to do it again, whatever. And where you've been and like what you were doing there.
Um, in regards, yeah, in regards to speaking to the public and the media, for me, I felt like, okay, I've got all of this pent up, not just energy, but stories that I'm hearing from hairdressers, the community, customers, from residents, all post pandemic. So, in some way, shape, or form, I felt responsible to speak up, right, and speak up not just in the world of what I was familiar with. I had to continue, and I encourage other people too. I had to continue to put myself in unfamiliar spaces every time and challenge myself to learn how I can stand my own and speak on behalf of my business and speak on behalf of my associates that were in the hair industry because people were going through so many different types of things. So I felt compelled, and I still do to this day, is where do who's going to lead and who's going to lead and speak to the other worlds about our world. It, you think about the food industry and restaurants, and you've got these big names and faces, and they can make these statements and do all these things for the community. For me, I felt like in the world that I was in men's grooming, like where can I connect that dot and speak? So I just felt like I got to get comfortable in front of the camera. I have a little bit of background as well in the arts and the performing arts in New York City, so it's never too much for me to be on stage and present my business. But when interviewers or people are asking questions or invited to the White House, you know, can you tell that story? Because with media, at the end of the day, it really is like, do you have something interesting? Right? It's one thing to say, this is what I do, and that feels great. But how do you want people to feel? Right? There's a feeling that's connected to hair, right? After you do a service, and that person feels great. Can you invoke that same emotional connection when you are storytelling in front of a camera, or if you're doing an interview? I think that's vitally important. I think that in some ways, especially in the American public and media, like that does connect with people. But it also has to be genuine. I'm not saying go out there and like just start create a fable or create a character. You have to come from the heart and you have to be sincere, right? People can see through that kind of stuff. So you know, all of those pieces culminated into me ultimately saying, okay, it's time to go to the spaces that are unfamiliar, which is in front of the camera, which is in front of politicians, which is in front of people in finance, and I'm the only hairdresser in the room, but that's okay. That's totally okay. It's okay to be the only one. You want to stand out because you want to change people's perception about how they see a stylist, about how they may see a colorist, or how they see a hair entrepreneur because we're people of business, right? That's why I always try to encourage students. Like if you are a business, then be a person of business that is in hair or that is in color or in grooming, because that makes you formidable, against anyone else. So you don't get intimidated and you don't cave in. You don't get nervous. We can do
So,
it.
um, what was I gonna say?
Mhm.
I have a number of questions. Like, one is definitely like, if someone is like, "Well, I have something to say, and I want to say it on national television," um, how do they get, like, is it relationship based? Is it, I mean, I had a friend that worked he's a manager or a producer for manager and producer for CNN Espanol and in DC, and then he went to LA and went to do his MBA. Now he's got his own startup. And his wife is an anchor and journalist for LA news station.
Mhm.
And I asked them, how do I get, how do we get like press? And he's like, write a press release. I was like, dude, I don't know. I feel like that's not how the world works. But is that how it works, or did you know somebody who got you like a meeting, or like did you work the network?
Well, folks, we have that comes with the. Well, let me break it back up. So the press world is, as we know, is different from the hair world. So for me to jump there, I either had to do two things: learn it so I can speak their language, or hire somebody who does, right? And not all of us have the money, startup money, to have a PR agent and have them on monthly retainer. So with any industry that we're jumping into, we have to study it, right? So if somebody tells me, I need a press release with talking points, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to figure this out. I'm gonna try to word it. Maybe there's someone in my network that does PR, and I can sit and have some time with them. I'm a firm believer in the power of the lunch. You ask somebody to lunch who's in an industry that you may not know, try to understand it, and then at some point take back that material, and then you can try to create a path for yourself. But this all goes back into that entrepreneurship that I think is not a full scale discussion in schools, because it depends on what it is we want to do, and we have to look at ourselves as that. So I had to go into to the in PR, into that world, take some time, which took months, took time to understand that, understand their language, and most importantly, how does what I do be of service to them? If they're in PR, they're about looking good. I'm the person behind the scissors. We can work something out. you know, where there's a dialogue, there's an exchange, but you've got, when you understand your power of influence, you can go in any room with a pair of scissors and make impact. And so I took that knowledge that I learned and applied it to this, which took time, took a couple of years, but you get better.
So you would encourage someone to like learn how to write a press release and network through their clients to get it positioned and written and all that. Is that what
If
would
if
that be
if
the
if
advice?
if that's what they want.
Yeah, well, yeah,
That's what
assuming
they
that's what
want.
they want.
Assuming that they want to be a premier stylist with the PR accolades, then you have to. We use the term celebrity a lot. I don't use that term for myself, or because I'm careful with that. But if that's the world that you want to enter in, you have to do all of the steps to enter that world. One step being is understanding public relations. Two is media and strategy. Three is who's your network? How are you going to get connected with them? Four is telling a compelling story. Why should anybody care about what you do? Right? What sets you apart from all the others out there? Know your why. Really, like truly understand the why. And that once again goes back to taking time too, that I wish that schools and other would teach. But once people, especially graduates, once they know their why, whether you have PR relationships and you're in magazines or not, that's the most important. And that's what's going to sustain you, right? That's what's going to sustain you. Because
So
if you do too much of the media, you feel sometimes if you're not careful, you got to keep up. You got to keep up. Not all the time.
so is this how you got to into the White House too? Was this like through doing the work, or did that come after you were on TV and you had to kind of build some relationships that way?
That comes with relationship, right? Through yeah, definitely do the hair industry, just business. That just comes with business relationships. And the higher you climb in certain spaces, the more relationships you cultivate, you build. You never know who's watching.
So
Right?
there. So what's the shortcut?
There
Is
is
there
no,
one? Okay.
there is not. If you try to shortcut, you sell yourself short, right? You know, and you don't want to do that because at the end of the day, especially if you have the talent and if you want to reach into a high standard of spaces, it'll never happen overnight. LVMH, right, home of Louis Vuitton, all of these luxury brands, was not overnight, right? We just saw this movie talking about Oppenheimer. It took a couple years to build that. Like it takes time. It takes time if you want to pass, if you want to get into that space or whatever your career goal is. Whatever your career goal is one thing, whatever your business goal is something else. Those are two different things. And you have to be able to identify those and see how they either work together or maybe one is one season of focus while the other isn't. Breaking the career down in seasons is a big help because then you don't feel like you're stressed, right? Especially a hair entrepreneur. Break things down into seasons and what you want to
Would
focus.
Sorry, would you okay, so two things because I now we're definitely coming up on time and I really appreciate your time. So two things. One, uh what is the difference between career goals and business goals? And then two, why were you at the White House and how what was kind of share that experience as we kind of as we wrap up here.
Okay, sure, sure. So career goals versus business goals. You have I use analogies a lot, so forgive me. You have the salesman who sells cars, right? And they have their personal goal of how many cars they want to sell. The business is the dealership, right? So what do we need to do to keep going and flowing? The career is I want to be promoted, right? I want to find myself selling maybe these types of cars. Same thing in the hair industry, right? Career goals is I want to learn a skill set or learn about certain tools. I want to connect with certain individuals, top tier individuals in the hair industry. I want to be able to speak or take on classes related to entrepreneurship and business. I learn about the economy, learn about banking and finances. Right? What am I doing with my money? That may be a career goal. A business goal could be, how do I um, what are the things necessary for me in terms of legally, what does my business look like? How do I need to set that up? What are the resources, maybe financial resources as well, to help me get to the next point of my actual business? And so that's vitally important. And then to answer your other question, how did I get into the White House and what was it for? As I said, at Groom Guy, people connect to us because of our network. That is one of our prime forms of currency, who we're connected to and how. But for us in this space of business, I was selected with other entrepreneurs in various industries to discuss where we lie as young entrepreneurs in this space of the current administration providing funds for businesses, particularly businesses in inner cities, and how we have access to that. We were also being able to communicate what are some of our challenges as entrepreneurs, what are the things that we've seen in the inner cities, in certain communities, particularly Black and Brown communities, but across vast cultural groups, and how our business are uniquely servicing all those people. at one time. So we spoke in front of the Small Business Administration. We spoke in front of the USPTO and other appointed from the president of his cabinets about the business, and then also hearing from them. Most importantly, hearing from them how they have created financial solutions and programs that could be of help to us. So it was an exchange, it was a dialogue, and it was much needed because they didn't see a stylist. They saw a business and the owner of the business.
So when you were in there, were the people that you were talking to, were you like, man, I'd love to get you in my shop behind the chair? Or did everyone have like dope haircuts, good haircuts?
They did. They
Oh
did.
yeah, really?
They listen. They something a lot. Listen, that job is so stressful. Some people had it, and some people didn't have the hair. Right?
Yeah.
We saw all kind of things.
Yeah, that's true, right?
But for me as an owner, it was not. I thought about this. It wasn't enough for them to necessarily be potential clients. I wanted them to believe in the business, and I wanted them to believe in what the hair community has to say and how we are playmakers in the labor force and why we need the funds and things allocated to us to make sure that we can last another 150 years, right? And we have the tools. Clients is one thing. You guys can come in and have a good time if you want. I want to know where, who, and what has and what we have access to. I need
Totally.
access.
So was let's just kind of like something kind of off topic. What was the being at the White House? Was that like was it like being in the movie on a movie set? Did it feel like what like and like what was security like? I'm just curious. Like like I said pre before the show, how many hairdressers are there? How many have been on TV? It's probably a really small percent, but how many been in the White House? There's only one. So like kind of the person who's like, "Oh, what was that like?" Maybe they don't necessarily have a desire to be there, but it's curiosity. Could you tell us a little bit about that, and then we can sign off after that?
Yeah, man. Listen, the White House is like the Wizard of Oz. It's a castle, right? It's the Great Castle in DC, and so when you get in there, it is very much. Listen, they know about your appointment before you do. I'll say that they got all the information they needed. I was just waiting for Harrison Ford to pop out or something like that to come save me. But and it feels very much like a like a school, if you will, if you remember like high school and things of that nature. There's massive amount of rooms, and granted, everyone seems to be doing something. It it is it just shows you how many agencies are in there, how many people are within those agencies. It is thorough as can be. So I've learned to give also being there, give grace, to give grace
Totally.
because there's a lot going on
Yeah.
and for that to be on one person and Lord, at a certain chapter and senior in their age, it can be a lot. But yeah, well, hopefully not the last and one of many, because once you're in that world, you can it's like a key that opens a door.
Totally.
I will give shout out though to the two there. From what I'm told, there is a barbershop inside actually in Capitol Hill. The Russell is it Russell? There's a building in on the east wing.
Okay.
There's a Senate barbershop inside, and there are two barbers in there. Don't know their names, but shout out to them holding it down.
Cool. That's cool.
They must have
Cool.
been there from they've had to be there for years. It's a government job, by the way, so they have all the benefits that come
Nice.
with that. So they're not put it this way, they're not going anywhere. Okay,
No.
they're staying right there, and that Senate shop probably looks like something straight out of the 50s. I can
They
only
probably need a hair salon, doing more than just men's grooming. You
sounds
know,
like a look.
now
Sounds like a day.
as we diversify things, and we have more women in those seats, maybe we need to try to get a salon in one of those buildings.
See, now we're talking. Now we're talking. You're
Yeah.
speaking my language, man. You're speaking my language. So
All right.
thank you.
Well, thank you so much. This was fun. Learned a lot and learned a lot about business and your business. And what we need to get to where we want to be. But also, we learned some interesting information about being on air and being at the White House. And so this is cool. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I'd love to. I look forward to like more conversations and I'm definitely going to be hitting you up and want to talk further about how we can maybe do some collaborations. But I mean, this was really, I really enjoyed it. And I really appreciate your time, so thank you.
As did I. Thank you, and I applaud you for the work that you're doing here at Hairdresser Strong. Is no better time than right now for this. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, until next time, I'll see you later.
All right. See you later.